This movie is for geometry conditional statements. This is Unit 2, Learning Target 2 and 3. Have you ever seen a bumper sticker that said, if you can read this, then you are too close? Well, we could switch that around and say, if you are too close, then you can read this. Or if you cannot read this, then you are not too close. Or if you are not too close, then you cannot read this. Those variations we are going to look at today. We say that a conditional statement is an if-then statement, and a lot of these terms you'll find on your purple sheet, so you will need your purple sheet out. So a conditional is an if-then. It's just like when a parent or a guardian says, if you clean your room, then you can go over to your friend's house. It's a condition. It's based on one condition, that you clean your room. So if hypothesis, then the conclusion. And what we say in logic is we say if the hypothesis is P, then the conclusion will be Q. So we say if P, then Q, and this is how you write it. P arrow Q. It means P is a subset of Q, so that if P happens, then Q will definitely happen. Pause the movie and add this idea to your purple sheet. Press play when you're finished. The study of if-then statements and their truth values is a foundation of reasoning. So we're looking at reasoning in this unit, and we're going to look at conditional statements. An if-then statement. If P, then Q, and here's our diagram. You can add this information to your purple sheets. The Venn diagram above illustrates how the set of things that satisfy the hypothesis, being P, lies inside the subset of things that satisfy the conclusion, Q. You can start with a statement of fact and change it into a conditional statement, such as a pentagon is a five-sided figure. What we can do is make that a conditional statement. We could say, if the figure is a pentagon, then it has five sides. Notice the if, then. Another example, a triangle with two congruent sides is an isosceles triangle. We could try to make that a conditional statement by saying if a triangle has two congruent sides, then it is isosceles. So you can always change a statement of fact into a conditional statement. The truth value of a conditional statement will either be true or false. True means that every time the hypothesis is true, then the conclusion is true. False means that I can show a counterexample for which the hypothesis, when that's true, the conclusion is false. So we're going to find the truth value of some conditional statements. If a polygon has four sides, then it is a square. Pause this movie, try this on your own, see what you think, then press play when you're finished. False. Counterexample could be a rectangle. So that conditional statement is false. The truth value is false. Another example, if a number is divisible by 3, then it is odd. Try this on your own. You could say false for many counterexamples. 6, it's even. Now we have the conditional statement of if P, then Q. We also have what we call negation, which means if not P. So here's the symbol. It's one little squiggly P, and it's red, not P. The negation of a statement, the sky is blue, is the sky is not blue. You use negations to write statements related to conditionals, and every conditional has 3 related conditional statements. We have conditional, converse, inverse, and contrapositive. And these are on the purple sheet. We're going to add to that purple sheet. Some of them include the negations that you see here. So here's a chart. And you're going to pause the movie and add this chart to your purple sheet. Conditional says if P, then Q. The converse says if Q, then P. You can see these two columns are really important. The inverse says if not P, then not Q. And the contrapositive says if not Q, then not P. So pause this movie, add this to your purple sheet, press play when you're finished. So a converse says if Q, then P. So if our conditional statement says if you're from Ohio, then you are American, here's your P value. Let's put that above it. if you are from Ohio. Here's our Q value, then you are American. So what we do is we switch it around and we say if you are American, then you are from Ohio. We put the Q first and then the P. Is it always the same truth value? Is it true if you're from Ohio, then you're American? Yeah, that can be true. Is this true? If you're American, then you're from Ohio? No, that is not true. So it's not always that the conditional, if that's true, that the converse is also true. Let's look at the inverse. If not P, then not Q. If the figure is a quadrilateral, then it is a square. That's our conditional. The inverse would be taking P and negating it, and then taking Q and negating it as well. So this says if a figure is a quadrilateral. We're going to state if the figure is not a quadrilateral, then it is not a square. So let's find the truth value here. If we have a figure that's a quadrilateral, 4 sides, then it is a square. That's not always true. I could have a rectangle. If a figure is not a quadrilateral, so that means it's a figure that does not have 4 sides, then it is not a square. That is true. So it's not always the same truth value. Conditional statement. If the angle is 180, then it is a straight angle. Our contrapositive says we switch it around, we put the Q first, and we negate it. So here's our if P, then Q. So if an angle is 180, we'll come second, and we'll negate it, and this guy will come first. So we switch it around to say, if the angle is not a straight angle, then the angle is not 180 degrees. True value here. So we can see that if we have a conditional that's true, our contrapositive will also be true, and these two will have the same truth value, the converse and the inverse. They're actually equivalent statements written in a different way. So, conditional, converse, inverse, contrapositive. The converse and inverse will always have the same truth value, as will the conditional and its contrapositive. All terms you'll need to know. Pause this slide. You can add it to your purple sheets in your notes. I would add some examples that we completed to your notes as well. We know a conditional and contrapositive are equivalent statements. They're both true or false. And the converse and inverse are equivalent statements, both true or false. Add that to your notes as well. And that's the end to the movie for Learning Target 2 and 3 of Unit 2.